welcome to the official Lakes International Comic Art Festival podcast. My name's Ian.
And my name's Nikki, bringing you the best in comics and graphic novels and updates from the festival.
Hello and welcome to the Lakes International Comic Art Festival podcast, episode 63. My name is Ian.
And I'm Nikki.
And I can't say three.
That's because we've had like a small amount of wine already. 3
is a magic number, they say.
3 is a magic number.
Well, that's this claimed for all the money it earns.
Oh. Damn it, we'll have to write a cheque for naught.
Right, this episode's ever so slightly different.
Well, it's a lot different, really, if you think about it.
Right.
It's like completely different. It's like nothing like we've ever done before. It's like, yeah.
Picky. We've got Garth Ennis, the panel that he did with Tim Pilcher at the Lakes International Comic Art Festival 2019.
Yes.
We wanted to interview Garth, but thanks to him living in the United States of America, we
don't.
We were unsuccessful. So this is like the second best.
Yes.
We'll have Tim instead of us.
Yes. Asking the questions.
I mean, it's not as sexy as me, but you know, it's Tim. So, yeah, that's coming up. But first, we've got something to say different to talk about that is not comic related in any way, shape, or form.
No.
My nephew, aged 27, died very recently, as in like a week ago from recording this. And it's been an odd few days dealing in my mind with the death of somebody younger in the family.
Yeah, especially such a sudden death as well.
It was sudden. There was no reason for it. It's come out now. There's a condition that's caused this. But I don't know why. I just wanted to just talk for a few minutes about it. It's weird. Dealing with death is odd. I've had plenty of people die myself.
Well,
older people.
Yeah.
Including my father, which was tough, but I feel you think...
Well, that's the natural order of things, isn't it?
You know your parents, even though he probably died a bit too young, he was still in his 70s, you know, and you know that your mum and dad are going to bugger off to the other side.
Yes.
Wherever that may be.
My mum's going to haunt me.
But you know that's going to happen, so when it happens, it's even if it's a shock, if it's quite quick, you still, in your mind, you know that one day...
Yeah, like I say, it's the natural order of things. You think, right, mum
and
dad
your
will
old
go,
relatives, you know, they're going to go.
Yeah.
But to have someone who you've seen grow from...
A baby, really?
Well, it was a baby.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you do usually grow from a baby.
I don't know what to say. It's been weird.
It's been hard watching you go through it. Because, I mean, I did know him, but I obviously didn't grow up with him like you did. So it's I see it as a terrible waste of a future, isn't it? That's the thing. It's a waste of what they could become. I mean, he had his own troubles, didn't he? Bless him. But you were kind of hoping he was getting on the right track, and that held all manner of excitement to see where he would be in another 20 years' time.
I think it's hard seeing, obviously, my sister dealing with it. Not very well. Seeing my mum saying comments like, I wish it was me, you know, don't want to see.
Hard,
And I don't know, this is almost a standard thing that happens when a younger one dies. This is what people say and do, but when it's somebody who's...
Yeah, well, it's different when it's your own family that come out with these.
And I think the comment I think to myself is, you don't expect it to be you. You don't expect your family. You see it happening all around you, and you do.
Of course you do,
are always popping the clogs, unfortunately, but...
you don't think you're going to be in this situation.
No, you never think that.
I almost felt... when we went round on the day, basically, that I was watching my own documentary in a weird way. That I was watching... I've watched so many, different things on telly, see the people, collapse and, the what-ifs and everything. And I felt almost out of body watching it all happen around. And that was odd.
I suppose probably everyone does go through a similar thing at some point in their lives. You know, someone is going to be younger.
Yeah, unfortunately.
And he's going to pass away. You don't expect it this young.
No.
Though, to be fair...
he crammed a lot in.
He was a funny old soul. He was
a lovable rogue. I think I'll always remember he's a lovable rogue.
He had a beard that every male would be jealous of.
Yes.
He grew it well.
And I managed to convince him to dye it.
Yes.
So for Christmas, and we just started discussing what he was going to diet this year. So it was really bad because I was going to get him beard baubles this year to hang in it. So yeah.
Because I won't.
Because you won't do it, but I knew he would.
That's basically it. That's just what I don't know why. I just wanted to say something. I think
fine.
If you have a death, then you need to talk about it. That's the first thing.
Oh God, please talk about it.
Whether it's with your family, friends, or whether it's through. Well, who did you use? The Samaritans when you had a problem.
Yeah, when I was
so
at my
they're
lowest,
available for things like this, aren't they?
Oh God, they're amazing. Yeah, I can never ever thank the guy that sounded like Father Christmas on the end of the phone when I was at my lowest moment, just talking to me for about an hour, just to make sure you're all right. Amazing, and they don't question you, they don't judge you. So yeah, if you just want to talk to someone, Samaritans all the way. Yeah, I can't praise them enough.
And
because you do, and it's fine to say you're not okay. That's the thing. I think it's breaking down now. I think people find that they can go, I'm not okay, I can't deal with this. And that's fine. There's some situations that you can't deal with and you do need to talk to someone. And you need to find a person or an organisation that will listen. And yeah, Samaritans, it's a phone call and there's someone there.
And I just put a post up on Twitter as well about this, and the support we've had from the comic community has been lovely. Yeah, to be fair,
really lovely.
I've not put it out anywhere else because sometimes it gets a little bit needy in some ways. It sounds, but I just wanted to put a little post out. But it's been some lovely messages. So thank you to anyone who's sent anything.
Yes,
we're all right. I think that's probably worth saying.
Yeah.
It's hurt and it's still hurting.
Oh, that won't stop. But
it's not, we'll be fine. It's not going to cause problems.
I got your back, darling.
Just, thinking of the rest of the family who, brothers and sisters and mum and dad who have to. Yeah,
I hope they do talk to people properly.
Yeah. Right, so now we've got rid of the miserable, the depressing stuff.
Yes.
Well, it is depressing, isn't it?
Sad.
Next episode, then, we're going to have the talk that we've been talking about for a while. All of us.
Oh, that's never going to work. Skype won't work. We could do Skype in different countries, but try and do it in this country. We've got to get someone from Wales on. That's never going to work. Wales and Scotland. That's never going to work.
And down the road. So
that'll be the one that collapses.
So that's coming up. We've also going to Thought Bubble.
We are
2019.
Yes, I'm hugging everyone.
Not sure which day yet, but
all of them.
All of them.
If you want to, you're going to have to wear a sign saying "No hugs, Nikki" if you don't want me just to leap at you.
Or maybe a table, because that's of course the issue.
That won't stop me. Let's be honest. I could probably, even though I'm almost 42 now, I could probably still vault a table.
McGarvey be warned.
Oh, I'm definitely annoying him.
So we're going to be there one of the days. Once we know, we'll let you know exactly which day. We'll be wandering, possibly interviewing, definitely saying hello and looking at the comic wares.
Yes.
And then we've got another.
I'll be buying badges because I've got a thing for badges.
You have. Let's go to a comic show and buy metal badges.
I've got that little Aztec man with his willy hanging out. That's the best one I've got so far. Makes me laugh every
I was going to make a joke about Willie. I thought, no, let's stop. Let's be good. Let's be good.
I've got Rachel Smith's badges on there and I love those.
Well, I think she's there, but I don't think she's got a new one out.
Okay. It's okay because I can buy one of the cats a different colour.
Oh, jeez. Other than that, we've sort of not planned the future yet. We don't know what guests we're going to be having on, but we'll let you know when we know.
Yes.
It all sort of comes to a stop after the festival.
Yeah, we kind of slow down a little bit, don't we? And then we build up speed again.
Yeah, well, we think we do.
No, we definitely do. Look, if we convince ourselves we actually do, then that's what happens.
We've also got absolutely loads to read.
Oh, so much.
Catch up on. Much. Noah Brow, Avery.
Oh, we've got to do my Book of Forks review as well.
Book of Forks, Self-Made
that's
Hero.
Been read.
Kiltopia's sat there. We've got some other stuff sent through. We've got absolutely bucket loads.
Yeah, the what's the India one from No Brow.
Yeah.
Because that's on my pile. That's at the top of my pile. So I'll be attacking that one next.
Loads. So, reviews are plenty coming up as well.
Yes.
So, thank you for listening. I'm going to leave you with Garth Ennis.
In the capable hands of Tim Pilcher.
Enjoy, and we'll see you on the 15th.
Bye.
Well done.
Right. Good afternoon, everyone. Well, that's a very strong mic. Right. You're obviously all here to see this man talk and chat about his 30-year career. I was going to do a big sort of intro for this, but then I looked at your Wikipedia site, and the little thing it just said, Garth Ennis is a Northern Irish comics writer whose works are characterised by graphic violence, black humour, profanity, an interest in male friendship, an antagonistic relationship with organised religion, and a reverence towards superheroes. Which I thought kind of summed it up. I don't know who wrote that.
That's the sort of thing that happens when you take no interest in social media or kind of minimal interest in the internet. You know, you get that sort of guesswork. But I suppose it'll do.
Yeah, as a good enough start.
Yeah, it'll do.
So, you've been working in comics. This is where we get to make you feel really old, because you've been working in comics for 30 years now.
That's right. In fact, I figured out, and anyone with a copy of Crisis from around that time could tell us, I think it's right around October 88 that the Crisis signing tour came to Belfast, and I met Steve McManus and Pat Mills and John Smith and Jim Bakey, and got chatting to Steve McManus about ideas for the comic, and he gave me all the details, and he gave me the phone number, and I would have sent off the idea for the first thing around then, and then it was on my 19th birthday that I called up expecting, don't worry kid, we'll get back to you, and I got, oh yeah, we wanted to talk to you about that, and they liked the thing, and I was off to the races.
So, just to kind of backtrack a little bit, you were initially studying at Queen's in Belfast, doing English, right?
That's right.
And then you kind of decided, did you kind of drop out because it was the wrong course, or you just wanted to do comics? Or?
I dropped out because I got the job.
Right, so that was...
And I really wasn't having a good time at college. I think it wasn't unlike school enough for me to think it was worth persisting with. It was like you still get up in the morning, you still put your books in your bag, you still trudge off through the wintry streets, you still get on the train, everything's, this isn't different enough. And this is not supposed to be a sob story, by the way. This is just, this has been a miscalculation. How do I get out of this one? And I was sending off ideas, but it wasn't as if I was sending off ideas to publishers to try and get out of college. That's a plan right up there with must find a big suitcase of cash, or must find the winning lottery ticket, and that'll sort everything out. But once I got the job, or at least once they said they would take the first story, I do remember a palpable sense of my life being about to change. I can remember thinking, if you get this right, if you don't make up balls of this, all your dreams will come true. Well, not all your dreams, but certainly the most immediate ones. And so it proved to be.
So, I mean, had you always kind of created comics when you were a kid, or were you kind of writing stuff? I mean, how did you suddenly make that kind of change that you suddenly thought, oh no, I want to write comics?
I think I wanted to write comics. I had vague, very non-specific creative ambitions since my early teens. But I don't think I'd really narrowed it down to the idea of writing comics until about 86 or 87, when I began to become aware of the work that Alan Moore was doing in American comics, Frank Miller, Hardchick, and Paul Chadwick, people like that, where I was able to read interviews with some of the writers and say, yes, you can, not only can you make a living at this, but you can also say a lot more things and tell a lot more different stories than comics traditionally have been capable of. I mean, this was that era. This was the time of Watchmen, of Swamp Thing, of The Dark Knight, Concrete, Love and Rockets. This was that first great leap forward. So
that was the kind of the inspiration of what was actually happening for you to think, I now want to get into it.
I could do this. This is a worthwhile medium. This is something you can have fun with. The actual process was easy enough because I'd seen there's a really old 2000 AD annual where they printed one of John Wagner's scripts, So it was like, to this day, people ask me why my scripts are so brief and concise, and that's why I just based them on that.
Okay. Excellent. So you got the job with Troubled Souls, which appeared in Crisis 15 in 1989.
Yeah.
And you were saying you had that kind of sea change. So did you feel that you, John McRae, who's an old school friend?
He's older than me, so I knew who he was, but John and another fella had opened Belfast's first comic shop a couple of years before, and that's how I got to know him, and I knew he was, I knew he could draw, and he had ambitions. In fact, I think he already had some Marvel UK work. And at that point, the only other comic artist in Belfast was Will Simpson, and he was busy with Road Trooper and Judge Dredd and so on, and John, it had to be, because in those days, of course, providing an artist with reference was not the simple endeavour it is now. You did have to go out and gather it up and take the pictures and send them off. So much easier to have a guy who just lives there.
So you followed that up then with True Faith,
right,
in 1990, which kind of like, so you touched on the kind of the political stuff with Troubled Souls, and then you kind of this was your first kind of attack on religion in a way.
I suppose so. It wasn't really meant to be that. This is just something that interested me. I can remember around that time, having written Troubled Souls, it did make a bit of a splash, and it certainly helped that once it was reprinted as a graphic novel, you had a 100-page full-colour graphic novel, and that was a very nice little portfolio, you might say, to show to publishers. But I can remember I was starting to, John as well, we both felt that we were being pigeonholed ever so slightly as the serious, politically aware, sincere people. Yes,
this is from the chaps that brought you Dicks.
Yeah, exactly. Well, actually, that Dicks came directly out of For a Few Troubles More, which was a direct reaction to what I'm talking about. We just wanted to show we had a couple more strings to our bow. And I guess it worked because, within a year of that, I've got Dread and I've got Hellblazer. So something's worked, I suppose. Dread's a bit of a dead end for me. Hellblazer, I think I only really got going halfway through the run, but the point is I get where I'm going. It's one more step up the ladder.
Yeah. So, I mean, you did obviously Dread for a long time, which you're quite self-effacing about.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was not good work. I think I did about, what do you think, maybe 100 episodes, if you added them all up, and out of those 100 episodes there is one good page, so that's not a particularly good track record.
But that's the last page of Judgment Day, with Dredd and Johnny Alpha.
Thank you, Carlos Esquerra.
So was the Dredd stuff that kind of brought you to the attention of DC, or did you kind of just pitch them?
That actually goes back to the Crisis stuff. Right. Karen Berger and Archie Goodwin had separately seen that and were interested in me working for them. And happy coincidence there was that Jamie Delano was getting ready to leave Hellblazer. So Karen commissioned tryout scripts from, I think, myself, Mark Miller, and John Smith. And she then turned to her new editorial hire, Stewart Moore, and said, your first task is to pick one. And I got it.
Excellent. That's cool. So you did Hellblazer for about 3 or 4 years?
Say 3.5, about 40 issues or so.
Yeah, so, I mean, were you a fan of what Jamie had been doing?
Very much so. Yeah. Very much so. I think Jamie's Family Man story is the best Hellblazer story ever written. I think it's terrific. They sent me Jamie's last couple of scripts because they haven't been drawn yet, so that I could transition into my run that little bit more easily. And I remember reading his script for his final issue, and I learned a really important lesson. In the intro to the script, I do not write intros to scripts, but Jamie does. he explained that this story was going to be about another Constantine, a John Constantine in an alternative universe, who had not made a balls of the exorcism in Newcastle, had become a magus, had become an incredibly successful magician. He'd basically been, if you think about the old Alan Moore Constantine when he was created, he had basically been that going up rather than the downward trajectory that Jamie took him on. And Jamie said in this script, he said, this is probably the Constantine that most people would have preferred to read about. And that had a really big effect on me, because I thought, my God, Jamie's known all along that he could have written probably a more popular take on this character, but he ignored that chance and instead did what he wanted to do. And I thought, how brave, how incredibly brave. And it was from that, I think, that I began to develop the idea of going your own way, of bashing your own way down your own road. And I think that's a tendency that has paid off handsomely for me. Yeah. But I still remember that sort of stopped me in my tracks, and I thought, he wrote for no one but himself. That's brilliant.
And that's been pretty much your career, really.
Yes, just one 30-year exercise in egomania.
So, and then you went on to do Demon and Hitman with John,
right?
Again, and but those kind of like had a much, well, Hitman not so much, but Demon was definitely a much lighter tone than say Hellblazer.
The tone on that one, on the Demon, because I took over at issue 40, had actually been set by Alan Grant, who had written it for 40 issues. And it was a good deal lighter and wackier. If I had started from scratch, I suppose I would probably have taken Alan Moore's go at Etrigan as my starting point, because he wrote a terrific Demon in Swamp Thing. The first time you see him, he's this sort of yellow, half gorilla, half lion thing, spitting fire coming over a rooftop. And I would have probably done it more like that, but that would have been a little jarring. And with John on board, of course, there is the opportunity for some grotesquerie, and I took full advantage.
Yeah,
which is why that thing's full of, pirates and haunted tanks and a giant battle in hell and just the most freakish looking demons imaginable, and Baitor.
Yeah, of course, which leads on to, it's quite interesting. So almost out of Demon came Hitman.
That's right.
And he kind of like said the characters were first appearing there, and kind of developing on from that. Was that something that kind of was just a natural progression, or had you always kind of planned to do that?
On the first issue of the Demon I wrote was an annual, and the annual event that year was space monsters bite people and turn them into superheroes. Jesus. This was clever of DC, because of course it means that for every annual they put out, they get a new character free of charge. They give us a little bit of, I think we have 5 or 10% ownership in Hitman. But it's funny, because we're doing this book about a demon, a very silly book about a demon, but you would think maybe our new character should be some sort of magical based thing. No, John and I at that time are huge fans of the John Woo Hong Kong movies, the sort of two-gun gangster thing, and we're absolutely determined that our character's going to be from that particular tradition. Yes, he has superpowers, but half the time I forgot he had them, which is why he usually shoots his way out of trouble. Yeah.
But it's an interesting one, because you can see that in Hitman, again, it kind of it has a lot of sort of dark humour, and it has still a lot of silliness that kind of out of Demon.
Oh, yeah, totally.
But you really start to dig into about friendships and about that kind of what it is to be sort of, the camaraderie of people together and through adversity and sort of bonding through that sort of adversity.
Yeah, that some of the stuff I'd grown up on. I don't know if anyone here read Battle, and I don't know if you remember The Sarge, the Jerry Finley Day Mike Western strip. It's about a British infantry platoon working their way up through Italy. Actually, it's not even a platoon, it's a section, it's 10 guys. And what would happen is Jerry would build the characters up so you got quite fond of them, and then knock them off one at a time for maximum emotional impact. And this was a lesson I learned well, and you can see it in Hitman because, yes, they're good guys, well, they're murderers, but likable guys, and yes, they have this sort of camaraderie and so on, but that life will get to you. And it does, and they get knocked off one at a time. And I think it worked out well for that story. Having that vein running through it.
Yeah. But it feels like you kind of took those notes and those tones about friendship and being kind of put through the ringer, but still sticking together, very much in Preacher.
That's true. I mean, in Hitman, there's something slightly different. They are hired killers. They do live by the gun. And no matter how good they are as friends, that life will eventually destroy them. Whereas in Preacher, if you see that Jesse Custer himself has this very strong kind of sense of macho camaraderie, doing the right thing, the John Wayne thing. But he eventually, in the very last issue, spoiler alert here, sets it aside. Not that he carried a gun, but effectively he throws away his guns and he gets to live. The guys in Hitman didn't. I think nowadays it would be called toxic masculinity. I would just call it the law of natural consequences.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because you said that Preacher was primarily you wanting to do a Western, doing a kind of a modern take on a Western genre.
In as much as I really had that much of a sense of mission at the beginning, Preacher really was, more than anything else I've done, a case of proceeding on instinct. I want it to be an American story. I want there to be a vampire. I want there to be a sort of Nikita-style hit girl. I want a gunfighter. I want a proper Western gunfighter. I want an evil villain, venal beyond description, the ultimate Darth Vader-esque overlord. I want to get him shagged in an alleyway to make him even more angry, just to see what would happen. And I really did, for the first 2 years, I was really proceeding on instinct. It was like, let's put a bit of this in. Should we put the little boy in the coffin? Let's put the little boy in the coffin. see where that goes. It wasn't until about 2 years in that I did think, I know how this ends. I know where this goes.
Right.
Now, if you compare that to the boys jumping ahead a bit, I pretty much knew how that was going to end from the get-go, and I knew the major beats as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's interesting because I always think of Preacher as primarily it's a romance. That's the central thread that goes all the way through.
Yeah, it's a romance. Together. It's a Western. It's a horror story. It's Wild at Heart meets Near Dark, and then Unforgiven shows up at the end to kill everybody.
Do you think that's what had its appeal, is the fact that it wasn't really tied to any kind of very clear genre? It wasn't sort of like you could definitely pigeonhole it into one of those particular things.
Yeah, I think because I put it together from so many sources, it did in turn suit so many people. There was something for almost everyone in there.
Yeah, that's cool. So there's certain genres that you've definitely been kind of associated with throughout your career. Things like horror. I was just kind of wanted to talk a little bit about those. So I mean, with more recent things like Crossed.
Yeah.
Possibly, I was going to say it was probably your most grisly, but I just read A Walk Through Hell.
Oh yeah.
And that's has anyone read that? Walk Through Hell?
It's
that's
a little bit feisty.
Yeah, I think I said to you, it felt like The Wire meets The X-Files via True Detective, and it almost felt a bit like a prequel to Crossed in some way. It's kind of
I don't know about that. Crossed was very much a reaction to the Bush era, which is why it's a horde story, a zombie horde story, but it's really about abandonment. It's about people being cast out into the wilderness and abandoned by anyone who could help them. I remember watching the coverage of the Katrina disaster in New Orleans and the Bush presidency's total lack total failure to help, local authorities' failure to help. So many people simply cast out into the storm and abandoned, and that was really the main thematic starting point for Crossed. A Walk Through Hell is a little more specific to the modern era. It's kind of bureaucratic and organisational wrongdoing and leading to authorities' grip on the reins, or perhaps decency's grip on the reins of humanity being slowly lost, and people turning aside and into wrongdoing. Yeah,
it's quite interesting as you were saying about that. I remember the advertising you had for Crossed. It was something like, "There's nobody coming. There's no salvation."
Right, no one's coming to help you.
Yeah, that was the tagline on that.
And in fact, the only guy who survives in that story, spoiler alert, is the one who's smart enough to listen to the woman who tells him, "We don't fight, we run, we hide, and then we move on, but we don't fight." That's another thing, like if you pulled a John Wayne in that world, you wouldn't have lasted very long at all.
Yeah. That's cool. So, I mean, moving on, war is probably the genre you're most known for in a lot of ways. I mean, you've practically single-handedly kind of revived the genre in the sort of modern era. I mean, you've had things like Nam and Vietnam Journal, but you've probably got the largest body of work by any writer on war comics at the moment.
Probably,
yeah. I mean, you've talked a lot about, obviously, and you mentioned it earlier, that your influence of battle was obviously a huge thing.
Yeah, you see, because of where I grew up in Northern Ireland, which is a small town outside Belfast, we didn't have very good distribution of comics and magazines. So whereas John McCrae, who grows up in Belfast, is able to amass a pretty good collection of American comics, either the British reprints or the original, I never really saw those. You would see them from time to time, but not enough for them to really get their hooks into me. I just got the British mainstream titles like 2000 AD and Battle, Warlord, the War Picture Libraries, Commando. We didn't even get Warrior. I didn't even see that until I found out that the Halo Jones bloke from 2000 AD worked in American comics, and he'd done these things called Miracle Man and V for Vendetta. So because of that, because I'm only really reading British mainstream stuff, I don't read superheroes. They don't get their hooks into me as a kid. And I've realised, of course, that with hindsight, that this has stood me in very good stead, because otherwise I'd just be another guy who you put on Daredevil, the 489th guy to write Batman, now it's time for a go at the Hulk, that kind of thing. Instead, I have a completely different take on comics and what you can do with them, and the war stories are a massive part of that. Reading Battle in particular, but also some of the picture libraries as a kid, and then slowly coming to understand that these comics and the movies I'm watching are based on things that people did in real life. This really happened. This isn't like Batman or Superman or Spider-Man. It's not even like 2000 AD. These things, if you allow for the hyperbole, of course, that's added to the comic book stories, these things happened. Men and women did these things. And that's what led me from comics to an interest in military history, which then leads full circle back to me doing my own war comics.
So, I mean, you've done endless amounts. There's the war story stuff for DC, 303 Battlefields that you're currently doing with Dynamite.
Well, Battlefields...
Is that on hold? Or is that
Battlefields, the last one was published about 7 or 8 years ago. I mean, I'm always doing war stories, but I tend to do them wherever I can. Now, I have started working with the Naval Institute Press. They have an imprint called Dead Reckoning, and they've collected some of the Battlefield stuff. Like they did a Night Witches volume with all the stories in one go. They're doing the Tankies as well. I'm doing an original graphic novel with them, with PJ Holden, called The String Bags. I don't know if anyone knows what a fairy swordfish is. It's an aeroplane. There was a guy last night said no, but I think I've dated one. It's an aeroplane. It's a shitty old torpedo bomber that accomplished impossible things. So I've got a graphic novel coming out about that. And there was Out of the Blue earlier this year with Keith Burns, and there was Sarah last year with Steve Epting. So I'm always doing it,
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. The majority, I mean, you have touched on things like, say, the Vietnam War with, say, Punisher Born and things like that, but your focus tends to be on World War II. And is there a particular reason why for that?
Probably originally because the comics I read as a kid focused on World War II. I mean, the only exception really is Charlie's War. I think that's just where my particular area of fascination lies. It's the things that happened in that war. It's the level that the hardware had reached. It's the effect that war had on our world and continues to. You're talking about 5 or 6 years. Actually, if you go back into China in the 30s when the Japanese invaded, you're actually talking about 12 years. 60 to 80 million people die. The world has changed for all time. There's a battle against unimaginable ultimate evil. The stakes don't get much higher than that.
Yeah, that's true. So you've got a Rat Pack story coming out in a battle special next year. Is that right? So that's almost like full circle now. You're actually writing.
Absolutely. Although the ultimate example of that was when Keith and I did Johnny Red a few years ago. That was a dream come true. Yeah. I had to pinch myself. I was actually writing Johnny Red. But yeah, they're next year Rebellion are doing battle and action specials. So I've written Rat Pack for battle and Hellman for action. Excellent. So that was a bit of a treat.
Yeah, so that's good. And you did Battle of Britain, of course, which was an old character.
That's right. He's an old IPC character. I think he goes back to the 50s.
Yeah. So, excellent. Have you ever thought about, because you read a lot of military non-fiction and obviously you do a lot of research into this kind of stuff. Have you ever been tempted to write a non-fiction book on military history?
No, because I, as you say, I do read a lot of this stuff, and the bar is, when you're reading people like Anthony Beaver and Carlo D'Este and Max Hastings, the bar is set pretty high. I might do a little bit of that. Steve White is putting together a series of magazines dedicated to particular aircraft, and I might do a little something for that. That I've flown in a number of these airplanes, and I've written little sort of photo essays afterwards. Maybe adapt some of those.
Right. So I guess the other one genre you're known for as well is crime. And doing crime. I mean, have you always been sort of, are there certain genres that just kind of just lure you back and that you're always interested in?
I think I prefer the genres that trade more in real life tropes than anything else. I've limited interest in fantasy. So crime, war, obviously, horror, when you're talking about the sort of non-supernatural end of things. Although I do like horror generally. When you get into science fiction, interest starts to sort of ebb a bit. I like things like Alien and Predator, but once you get into Star Trek and so on, that's not for me. Fantasy, as in sword and sorcery, I read The Hobbit as a kid, and I love that story. I feel like that set the bar very high. My interest doesn't really go much further than that, except, of course, for the 1980 classic British sword and sorcery thriller Hawk the Slayer, which just is I think, the last word in that genre. And, of course, not having read superheroes as a kid, I have very little interest in them now. So I tend to go for sort of any genre but that, really. And the fantasy with a small f holds limited appeal for me.
Yeah, because you've done a fair bit of kind of like, comedy titles. You did a Train Called Love, which is essentially a kind of a rom-com, kind of thing. And The Pro is primarily it's a comedy, isn't it?
Yes.
Really? So you kind of, because I think a lot of people don't ever really sort of mention that sort of stuff. They always go for the visceral and the venal kind of stuff that you do. And actually, nearly all of your work has a good comedy thread going through.
I hope so. I think. Oh yes, I remember. It was a writer I admire very much, a novelist called Derek Robinson, and he said if you take the humour out of a situation, you take the truth out of it. 99% of the time, people will find something to laugh about just to ease the tension.
Yeah. So is there a genre that you haven't yet explored that you'd like to kind of look into?
Well, I suppose I've never really done sword and sorcery, so if someone could get the rights to Hawk the Slayer, I have a fantastic comic book sequel all worked out. Amazing, like a mind sword and the elf with the arrows and automatic crossbow, all that shit.
Right, there you go. Anyone out there? So you're extremely prolific. I mean, you do produce a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
What's your secret?
Not realising how prolific I was being, I think. I have eased off a bit these past couple of years, although that doesn't mean that there aren't things that are waiting to be drawn that you will see coming out. So it might still seem that that I'm keeping up the volume at first. I think I just love what I do. I love telling stories. I always want to get on to the next one. I'm always curious about the next thing I write. When I was writing Preacher, I would be looking forward to writing the next Hitman script and vice versa.
Yeah. So, I mean, is it also possibly the brevity of your scripts? You're not writing these big Alan Moore essays.
That could help, yeah.
So you can keep the kind of speed up. So, I mean, do you often work on multiple series at a time? I mean,
no, I tend to write them in one go. Like if I have a 6-part Punisher that's going to start coming out towards the end of the year, and I wrote that over 6 weeks. Just helps to keep it clearer in your head.
So yeah, and it takes you about a week to do a script.
Week of scripts, good.
Yeah. So that's cool. So I mean, what's your average kind of writing day like? I mean, is it kind of like are you one of those people that is very kind of dedicated? You get up, you get
not
down.
Really. I'm more the sort of person who feels so long as it gets done, it doesn't matter how.
Yeah.
Most of the writing happens in the afternoon and early evening.
Right. So yeah, that's cool. So when you are developing a new series or something, do you have an idea of the artist in mind? You're writing something, you think this person would be a good artist for this project.
Sometimes,
yeah.
So sometimes you write things kind of blind, not knowing who's going to draw it. Other times, you might be working with an artist you've never worked with before. I did that book Sarah last year about the Russian woman sniper. That was with Steve Epting. Now, I knew Steve, was an artist of many years' experience and enormous ability, but I was still writing the scripts thinking, I wonder what he's going to make of this, because we've never worked together before. Of course, it turned out to be one of the best art jobs anyone's ever done on one of my scripts. If it isn't the best one ever, it's not far off it.
That's beautiful.
And with Betty Breitweiser on covers, it really turned that book into a visual delight.
Yeah. And it's interesting that format is slightly larger than an American comic format.
It's something TKO decided to go with from the beginning. I think it's part of their sort of binge reading philosophy. But they just wanted something that would show off the artwork a little bit better. And other publishers saw it and adopted the same idea, like Out of the Blue, Aftershock went oversized. This Stringbags graphic novel with PJ Holden, that's going to be oversized. I like it. It's very British. Feels like the 2000 AD battle approach. Yeah, really lets the art breathe.
Yeah, absolutely. So, are there any artists who are kind of like who you would like to work with that you haven't had the chance to? Because you've managed to work with kind of like your heroes like Carlos Esquerra and those kind of guys.
Unfortunately, they're all bloody dead. I mean, it would have been wonderful to work with Massimo Ballardinelli in his prime. In the sort of early 70s, 80s phase when you're seeing this stuff pour out of his head that you can't begin to understand where it came from. I always liked Jim Bakey's stuff. I always Skiz is a favourite of mine. He had a nice sort of workman-like nuts and bolts quality to his art that I always liked. but no chance on those two. I was very glad that on The Punisher I got to work with Corbin. Mm. That was a treat. He was one of the very few American comic artists that I'd heard of before I encountered American comics, because a friend of my dad's had all the sort of underground stuff. So that was nice. And some of the other older guys I've managed to get would be nice as well.
We were talking about Mike White the other day as someone. Yeah, he's not really doing much comics these days, but was an influence.
Yeah, actually just thinking about it, I mentioned I'm doing that Hellman story for the action special. Well, the original Hellman artist, Mike Dory.
Mike Dory.
You were talking, you meant Mike Dory. Yeah, he's going to draw that.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Oh, that's great news. So, sorry, yes, that's right. Yeah.
He's not going to draw it.
So he won't do that. So you've done long runs on The Punisher,
right,
and The Boys, and Hitman, and Preacher and Crossed and stuff. So are you tending to kind of stick to shorter series now? You don't feel that you want to get involved in those big kind of long epics?
I can't see myself doing anything on the scale of The Boys or Preacher again, but on the other hand, I feel like I'll always come back to The Punisher. Because Frank and I were made for each other in some gruesome, sick way. I do like Frank. I like his honesty. I like his simplicity. Essentially, if you're not a problem for him, you've nothing to worry about. If you get anywhere near him, he'll just say, "Get away from me, or you'll be killed." If you enter my world, it will somehow contrive to kill you. So stay away from me. Now you compare that to someone like John Constantine, who'll say, "Hold on a minute, mate. Maybe I can help you with that, and then maybe you can do a favour for me." And then next thing you know, you're in hell. You see? Yeah. Frank's honest about it.
Are there any titles that you felt didn't quite get the attention that you felt deserved, and that you wish that more people had picked up? Something you were really kind of proud of that didn't quite,
I do wish that the war stories had a bigger audience, but I've accepted that in this day and age that's just unlikely. Things like Sarah, Dear Billy, 303, Nightingale, Last German Winter. I feel these are the best stories I've written. The stuff that most clearly shows what I'm capable of. But I'm not kidding myself at the same time. I mean, go to any of the big American comic conventions, and you'll just see this multicolored tsunami pouring across the floor, and that's American comics, that's superhero comics, and that's what it's always going to be.
Yeah.
So long as I can keep doing it, that's what counts the most.
Yeah. I mean, you've said that in the past you're very dialogue driven, but I mean, a lot of it often feels very sort of character driven as well. I mean, you're kind of, for want of a better word, following a people's journey.
Don't say that again. that's terrible. So I'll tell you what, shall we live our own truth? Why don't we do that? I think I got that from 2000 AD in Battle, where you had very, very simple, direct characterization, where people like John Wagner and Pat Mills could establish characters very quickly with minimal effort. I'd like to think I picked up on that.
Yeah, that's cool. So, we were discussing, we were doing a panel on censorship in the morning, and have you ever felt the need to self-censor yourself? Have you ever kind of thought, this is a good idea, and go, oh no, I really can't do that? And
a couple of times, and I've just thought, no, let's go ahead anyway. But I can tell you that I have run into people whose limits lie a lot further down the road than mine. A lot. For people for whom I haven't gone far enough, and they are people I tend to draw back from. But no, there have been a couple of times where I thought, this is too much. This is oh God. There's a Crossed story being drawn at the minute. It's taken forever to appear. It will one day, and there's some stuff in that with a pair of twins that gets a bit near the knuckle, as Alan Partridge would say. You'll know it when you see it, and that was where I thought, can I do this? Is this right? It's that Alan Moore test, is this moral? Yep. Carry on.
So now Preacher is finished on TV, and what are your thoughts about it as a TV series?
Well, I'd be the first to admit it didn't exactly set the world on fire. On the other hand, 4 seasons isn't bad. I thought it was cast extremely well. There's not a thing I would change about the cast. I thought it looked great. The writing, I thought, was up and down, but then that's true of any TV show, right? Unless you're talking about The Wire or The Shield or one of those things.
Yeah, so that's cool. So, I mean, and now, of course, The Boys is something like the most watched TV show on Amazon. And so that's kind of just shot, it's gone completely stratospheric.
So with the book sales, I'm happy to say.
Which is always good. Yes, no, I saw that. So
it is nice in both cases that the books haven't been eclipsed and they are out there and new audiences are discovering them, because that, for me, is really what it's all about.
The royalties.
The visibility of my message.
So why do you think sort of The Boys has kind of taken off in the way that Preacher didn't?
Because it's so simple.
Right.
It's such a simple idea. You can do it in one line. Superheroes are bastards. They need a slap, and here are the boys who are going to do it. Now, you try and do that with Preacher.
Yeah.
See, there's this guy, and his mate's a vampire, and did I mention the Saint of Killers? Oh, and there's this guy. It's just, you can't do it.
Yeah.
It's just the sheer simplicity of it, and I think the showrunner, Eric Kripke, he's another guy with a very sort of nuts and bolts approach to writing, I think, and he just seized on that immediately and ran with it.
Yeah, that's great. So, I mean, is there any of your works that, I think you're not so vehement as, say, Alan Moore, but I know you said that you're not really that bothered about adaptations. It's kind of like, it's fine, they can go ahead and do that. Yeah. I mean, is there anything of yours that you would like to see or curious to see adapted?
Oh, sure. I mean, most of it's the war stories. Yeah. I mean, I would love to see Sarah on the screen. A woman sniper killing Nazis, like, you can't go wrong with that. And various other things. I mean, the trouble with war stories, of course, is the hardware. It would be great to see a Night Witch's story, but there are only 2 of those aircraft extant, and you're either going to have to pay to use the original aircraft, or you're going to have to spend a lot of money on the CGI. That's what makes them a bit harder. But yeah, I'd love to see that stuff on the screen.
Yeah. And you've experimented with a little bit of directing with the short that was tied in with Stitched.
That's right. That's where I discovered that I shouldn't do that because I'm no good at it.
So, well, you just answered my question there, is that you have no interest in kind of either writing or directing for film or TV?
No, that ambition was killed stone dead some time ago. Now, writing, that's a different matter, yes. But of course, writing for TV and film is a very different process because every bugger gets a say. Everybody's an expert, and everyone has the right to stick their nose in and tell you what to change your script to. Whereas in comics, what I write goes on the page. Yeah. I mean, even at Marvel, I have a very good editor there, Nick Lowe, who makes sure that what I write stays in. Very occasionally, there'll be something like, maybe once every 20 issues or something where you'll have to say, I'm sorry, man, we just can't. Yeah. But beyond that, my stuff goes out uncensored.
But you did write an original treatment script for Preacher, didn't you? Back when it was going to be a film.
Yeah, but that was in 96 or something like that.
Yeah, that worked, I thought. As a condensed kind of thing.
Yeah, I remember Steve Dillon and I sitting there sort of figuring that out because we came up with the story together. But I do not remember what we came up with.
Yeah.
I'm guessing it was a bit like the comic.
Yeah, but it kind of focused on the grandma and the relationship with Cody and TC.
Yeah. Well, that's my favourite bit of Preacher, actually. Yeah. The Angelville stuff.
Yeah. Excellent. So, can you talk a bit about any kind of future projects that you're working on?
Sure. As I say, there's this last Cross story that to come out that sort of completes the Fatal Englishman trilogy. There's another series at Avatar that's written and drawn that hasn't come out yet. It's part of a new Alan Moore project. Avatar is in, what's the best way to put this? It's undergoing a period of restructuring. So when that stuff appears, I do not know. There's this Punisher book, Soviet, with art by Jason Burrows that starts next month. There's another Punisher I can't really talk about. There's the Battle in Action specials. There's the Stringbags graphic novel with PJ. And there's a new series with Axel Alonso's new imprint that'll be out in a year or so, which is a sort of a time travel comedy type of thing.
I'll go back to Time Flies.
Let's not do that. Let's not go back to Time Flies. Please continue.
Dig up the dirt.
Please continue.
So, Alan Moore has recently sort of pronounced that he's giving up comics and he's going to be working in other mediums and doing that. I mean, is that something that's kind of appealed, to move away from comics and to do something like a play?
Not to move away from comics, because I love comics and I feel like I'll always have a story to tell in the medium. Wouldn't mind a crack at a novel. I turned 50 in January, yay, and I'm thinking I might let that be the point where I focus on the things I've always wanted to do. Now, one thing would be a novel, but the other thing is a Battle of Britain graphic novel with Keith Burns, we've been talking about, and that really is 30 plus years in the making, because that's the historical period I'm most interested in.
Yeah. Right, I think we'll open it out to the audience. So if we have the lights up so we can see you guys, and then if anyone's got any questions for Garth, I've got a chap in the middle there.
So you were talking about, just going back to the war story,
Mm-hmm.
and I absolutely adore your war stories.
Thank you.
The one that, the pre-existing one that strikes me as being sort of closest in tone and style to your work is Charlie's War. But there's this kind of combination of sort of faithfulness to historical accuracy combined with really sort of terse storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
So I was wondering, is Joe Colhoun someone who you would have liked to have worked with?
Oh God,
How
yeah.
much of an inspiration is Charlie's War to your work?
I would have loved to have worked with Joe Colhoun. I mean, he was wonderful in the humanity. He managed to get into his characters, the storytelling, the attention to detail with the hardware, unsurpassed. And yes, Charlie's War was a massive influence in so many ways. In terms of characterization, like Pop Noir was another one who builds up the beloved cast of regulars and then shoots them in the head, just sends them out to the firing squad one at a time. That also the attention to detail in historical terms, Pat's tendency to dig up dirt on the war, to find things, to look at it from angles that haven't normally been examined. I mean, I can still remember being 9 years old and reading the Battle of the Somme sequence, which is an incredible episode because you see line after line of British infantry simply mown down like wheat before the scythe, and it's horrific and heartbreaking too. You see the Manchesters go across no man's land kicking footballs, which actually happened, and by the end of the day, 20,000 men are dead and twice that injured. And I was 9 reading that, and I can remember understanding in some very vague 9-year-old way, this is different. This is not the usual, the sergeant, his guys grenade a machine gun nest and save the day. There's something different happening here. It took me a while longer to really fathom it, but it was my first introduction to the notion of things not going so well, of quite elemental tragedy in a comic book story. That stayed with me for a long time. So a long way around the barn, but it's a massive influence. I think it's the finest single comic strip you can ever read.
Yes. Yeah.
You have a ownership on Hitman, but there's been a sort of a corporate change between with the two big two with DC and Marvel, and if there was maybe some editor at DC said, hey, I know what, let's revive, because Hitman, at the end of Hitman, it ended on an ambiguous ending. I didn't know if he...
After he was riddled with gunfire?
What if Ned is saved?
Oh, sure.
Monaghan.
I should clarify. I should clarify things. John and I do not own Hitman. We have about a 5% stake in the profits, so we have no say in what gets done with the character at all. All that happens is they'll pay us a small royalty on anything they do with Hitman. I think they also have to give us first refusal to do the book. So if they want someone to write Hitman, they have to come to me first and say, would you like to do it? And then when I say nope, they can go on and get someone else, and the same would be true of John on the art. But we have no actual control. And my feeling about it, to answer the second part of your question, would be that we knew that going in, just as I know that whenever I do work for hire, when I write The Punisher, I am giving everything I do to Marvel. Now, both companies have gotten a little better in the past 10 or 15 years or so, where they will give you a little something whenever your work on a character inspires a film or a TV show or something. That's been true of the last 2 or 3 efforts to make The Punisher on the big or the small screen. But in terms of control, no, nothing. So I would just accept it. And, if they did something with it and did some new Hitman book that was simply appalling, well, all I have to do is look the other way.
It's like the Gentleman's Agreement, like Neil Gaiman. That's kind of remind me of...
Gentleman's. Yeah, in as much as you can have a gentleman's agreement with a gigantic corporation, yeah.
Thank you for
Sure. Just think we've probably got time for just 2 more. So.
I read a study talking about how the Preacher is like a reinvention of the mythologized Western, but in like a more morally ambiguous light. And I was wondering, like, being in the time period it came out of, was that sort of that inclination to sort of reinvent and reimagine? Was that sort of like a conscious thing, or was it just because of the time, to getting a bit edgy?
Do you know, I've thought about that. Occasionally, I was thinking about it recently, and whatever zeitgeist was on the loose in the mid-90s, when I thought it's time for a horror romance western, I must have missed completely. I really must. It's to go back to my previous answer about Preacher, it really was a question of just proceeding largely on instinct. I think this is right. I think this is the way to go. People seem to like this. Let's see what happens. But beyond that, there was no great starting point. There was no real theme or sense of mission. I must do X, Y, and Z. That never really happened.
I have 2 questions. First of all, are the waffles edible? Just out of interest.
It's
a serious question that needs answering.
I think they are, but I wouldn't risk it.
I think they're good.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry about the set, by the way.
Welcome to my living room.
20 quid to the one who dares eat the waffles.
It's all
That's
very...
a lot of waffle.
I don't know about the waffles, but the set itself is very Tory MP choosing a rent boy.
Who's who?
In the armchair, he's got 10 of them lined up.
And second of all, you mentioned censorship.
Mm-hmm.
What are we censoring here? Swear words, boobs? What are we talking about?
Oh, it's always been a word here, a word there, a scene there. I mean, the place where I ran into more censorship than anything else was when I was doing the letter column for Preacher.
I thought you were just in North Korea for a minute.
No, but I see where you're going with that. I wanted to, there was a lot of stuff, people would send in letters, and gradually they were just sending in insane shit they'd done, rather than anything to do with the book, which I kind of liked. And there was stuff that Axel Alonso and I would try to get into print, and we would just be told, no, this, I don't see what's funny about this. Would you just trust us that it is? And there was, I always remember there was one chap who wrote me a lovely long letter, He had beautiful handwriting and a wonderful turn of phrase, and he told me a story about the previous week he'd gone to the all-you-can-eat buffet at his local Italian restaurant, and after 4 helpings of spaghetti bolognese, it was time to visit the restroom. And he went in, and the thing happened, and the story ended with him standing in the ruins of the bathroom, stark naked, being washed clean by the manager of the establishment with a fire hose. And he said,
"Why is there a fire hose in the men's room? What do you like?"
"Oh, they brought it in. You said they had to bring it in because of what he's."
So you gents don't just have a random hose.
Well, this guy had a particular thing happen that we'll draw a veil over that. But the letter ended, and it was this little note of civility on which it ended that I loved. He said, "And we parted on good terms." And I thought, that's nice. That's old-fashioned good manners and civility, and I love that.
Maybe the waffles will help you get that.
Yeah, that might have played a part. But it was that sort of thing where it doesn't matter. It's just a letter. But it was annoying. After a while, it just got annoying. Come on, lighten up.
You say that you got one really bizarre piece of sort of gift in Fanmail, which had some sort of ash in. And
it was a photocopy of the guy's dad's ashes.
Yeah,
it wasn't the actual
I thought it was the actual
ashes.
No,
he photocopied his dad's ashes, as you too, and sent it in. Thanks.
That's great. So you've been in the industry now or working in the industry for 30 years.
Yes.
How do you think it's changed for you personally and generally over those 30 years?
Well, for me, it's worked out quite well. I came in at a time when creators' rights were, that was the big rallying cry. I mean, one of the first people I met in the business was Alan Moore, and he said to me, "Own what you create. Just keep ownership on everything you create." And so did other people I met around that time, like Pat Mills and John Wagner and so on. And at the time, you could get some very good creator-owned deals, even at DC Comics. Preacher had, I think, the best, it was created under the best deal available in DC's history. And of course, it wasn't long after that, and this is sort of the second part of your question, what have I seen rather than what's happened to me? It wasn't long after that they started to realize, hang on a minute, we're giving these people ownership of this material, and we can't benefit from it in the way that we might, and that's when they started to sort of pull back on those deals, and so people have been kind of forced out into the independents, and that can be good because you can own whatever it is you do, which is of course the point, and you can control it. But the disadvantage there is that unless you have a big hit like Brian with Saga, or the Walking Dead chap, if you don't have that sort of massive hit, those books can be hard to keep going because you can find yourself either paying for them yourself or working for considerably less than you might have done at an imprint like Vertigo, for instance. So I suppose you could say I've seen the kind of rise and decline of creators' rights, and it was lucky for me and my generation that we got in at the point that we did, because it's been that bit harder for people since. And another thing I've noticed, just talking to people, is that page rates have been cut by Marvel and DC, in some cases to a degree I would not have thought possible. There's some quite gruesome stuff going on out there. That shocked me when I heard what some people were getting. Again, I was very lucky that my rate was, at various places, was set at a time when creators' rights were to the forefront.
And finally, just to round off, because we're going to run out of time, where do you think, what lies in store for the industry in the next 30 years?
For that, you would want to talk to one of those sort of industry pundits who takes a real interest in the comics business, about which, to be honest, I really, really couldn't give a monkey's. So long as it survives and I can do what I can do, and comics can still tell any story, handle any material, that's what matters, because I'm just not really interested in the industry. I just like stories.
And that's what you do. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Garth Ennis.
Thank you for listening. Find out more about the festival at comicartfestival.com. Find out more about the show and how to contact us at comicartpodcast.uk. Find us on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. Music composed by Pop Noir.